that's why I didn't attend. Now, meant that to be clear, so your recommendation is that the staff is going to review it, we're going to review all this independently, you're going to make a report back in our October meeting,
yes.
And then we'll do something similar to what we did with PACE 10. We'll have some community meetings.
Yes.
My recollection is when we did that PACE 10, that individual commissioners
yes.
tried to be at those community input meetings, and then we'll look to take official board action in November.
We would encourage city council, panel members, and KUB board members, as well as KUB staff to attend those meetings.
All right. Obviously, we're just now getting this. So there are two minority reports, one of which says that it was submitted by Ms. Rowe. Larry, did you do the other one, or was that a collective effort?
Ms. Rowe and Larry.
Okay. All right. Okay.
The other.
Well, somebody mentioned, I think Larry said that some of these, this minority report, I think, contains another 20-something, 26 recommendations. I think you said many of which only fail by 1 or 2 votes. Is there a way to determine which recommendations only fail by 1 or 2 votes and which ones? Okay. 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 I'm just trying to get my homework organized here.
And if we have questions, we were reading this, if we have questions, who we contact with?
Any of us.
Okay.
Whoever you feel appropriate based on what it is.
Is the panel be available via email?
I'm sure they would be glad to answer.
Okay. Should we email the same email, 3 panel emails to get it to them, or?
We can get you the correct email addresses.
Okay. You may get some questions out there.
Some people didn't want their.
And I'd like to clarify, Jamie, you made the comment about the diameter trees, the small diameter trees. I assume you mean under the lines and in a particular trim zone. Is that? Can you just clarify that?
Well, right now, I thought the policy was to remove all vegetation. I know it says except redbuds and dogwoods and so on, but they came to our door and wanted to cut those down, even though they've been there 30 years and nowhere near the power lines. So I think that's what the problem is. In some of the places that we saw in West Hills, it had been cleared like that, which we call clear cutting. I know some people took issue with that, but that is what it is.
So you think it's an inconsistent, a dogwood might be left on one yard and then down the street it might have been clear? Is that?
Well, it's inconsistent, but it's also cutting all the vegetation down. I'm not talking about invasives and things like that, but
okay.
Small diameter trees that aren't going to be a problem, that are maybe even way outside the zone, and some that are under it that are smaller. They need to be left.
And not to put you all on the spot, but right now is the policy to clear vegetation underneath the lines no matter what, or?
The policy today is if it isn't in a yard or a landscape maintained area, in a residential area, we will not remove anything of that nature unless it is with the property owner's permission. If it is in an unmaintained area, vacant lot, wooded area, things of that nature, the tall growing species will be removed within that maintenance zone. We will leave the smaller decorative type trees, but we will remove all those small diameter trees that are large growing, tall growing, and the intent is to prevent future problems, to keep those small trees from growing up into much larger trees that then do impact the lines and have to be trimmed or removed. That's the policy.
Questions? Other questions?
I'm still flipping through.
You read faster than the rest of them. It's that attorney background.
Is the did the panel? I don't see it in the report. I've just flipped through it, but I don't see any economic analysis in here. So
There was general discussion by the panel, but what our report will include to you in October is if there's significant economic impact to share.
okay.
And
So
basically in the discussion at the panel, it was generalized, or would this be real expensive? But we didn't do any economic
Okay.
analysis.
All right. Because I mean that can cut both ways. It can be expensive to do, but it can save money in the long run. So, but that'll be part of what the staff analyzes and will report back to us on as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Anybody else? like to comment at all while we're kind of in open forum here? If not, we're going to move along to, oh, excuse me, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll make one brief comment that sort of referred to what you were talking about,
Yes,
what
sir.
Bill was talking about on the current policies on what's trimmed and what's not trimmed. One of the sections that we had in there talks about education, and in that section, and dealing with contractors, but we talked about sometimes where the policy may be a fine policy, but the bottom line is not, the policy isn't totally carried out. We saw a lot of those instances, so we thought there was a lot of emphasis that needed to be placed on contractor training and supervision.
We're inconsistent. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We are going to move along to the general agenda which we have here. Those of you are welcome to stay or move along. We're not offended either way. I guess we are going to resolution 1230, which is authorizing participation in the TDA's time differentiated hours use and demand, TDAUD, pilot seasonal demand and energy, ESDE programs, amending the rate schedules of electric division to provide for TDAUD and QSDE rate schedules. This is the second reading. We started last meeting with this, so I'll go ahead.
Thank you. As you point out, this is the second reading, and I don't have a full presentation today, but just to re-emphasize some of the points from our last presentation. First, TVA is continuing to look to try and send price signals to customers that the price of electricity they generate varies by the time of day and the season of the year. And as a part of that, design rates that send that signal to customers. You may recall over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, we've had 2 or 3 different pilot industrial type rates that embrace this concept. The 2 programs that are currently before us that was approved on the first reading that are, if approved on a second reading, will go into effect October 1st, are the pilot seasonal demand and energy program and the time differentiated hour use of demand. Lots of words. One called PSDE, the other TDHUD. Both of these programs are seasonal rates. One of them is not only seasonal, they're also the rates differentiated by the time of day. The pilot seasonal demand energy rates for the largest, only available to the largest of our customers, maybe 7 of them at most. The time differentiated hour use of demand are available to about 75 of our customers on current guidelines. These are voluntary programs that customers can elect to sign up for. They sign up for them for a term of up to 1 year. KUB's margin, if a customer elects to participate in this, is not changed one way or another. We also, because we have participated in the previous programs, already have the appropriate metering in place, the appropriate computer programs in place to be able to build this type of rate schedule. And as we talked at last meeting, we believe that about 10 customers would take advantage of this, and indeed, waiting the final passage of this, we have 10 customers now that have expressed interest to go on this rate schedule effective October 1st. We've got 2 other customers that have expressed interest about maybe starting on these rate schedules in November. So there are the customer interest and demand out there that have been expressed. You might also recall that we talked about the TVA board needing to act to offer these programs. We were a little bit in advance of them at the last board meeting. The TVA board has acted. These have been officially adopted by the TVA board as pilot programs that are going to be available October 1st. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
For the second month now, the cost of manufacturing electricity, I can understand with the hydro portion of that, certainly in the spring, they should be able to produce more, whatever. But I'm a little confused, how is it more expensive to generate electricity when it's at a peak hour than a non-peak hour?
TVA has, 3 or 4 different type of resources they use to generate electricity. Like you mentioned, they have hydro, they have nuclear, they have coal, they have natural gas, and then purchase power. I guess that's roughly the 5 things off the top of my head I'd say they have. And each one of those have a different cost associated with it. The hydro is essentially free. The nuclear, once they get a nuclear plant running, it's very cheap to keep it going. But unfortunately, the load throughout the day that TVA serves may vary from, pick a number, 10,000 megawatts up to 30,000 megawatts within a day. So that 10,000 megawatts that's there 24 hours a day is being served by the cheapest power. Then as the load builds, they have to bring on a coal unit. And then as the load gets a little higher, they bring on a less efficient coal unit. And then as the load gets higher, then maybe they bring on a natural gas unit. And then as the load gets even higher, maybe they go out and purchase power. But they do all that on an economic dispatch kind of basis, so that on any given hour, they have different resources being used to meet the demand. And each of those resources have different costs associated with it. And when we say different costs, it's not just little bitty different costs. It can be very significantly different costs between the cost of a hydro or a nuclear generation versus the cost of an off-system purchase or a natural gas-fired power plant. So their costs, if we were showed up here, you'd be surprised at how dramatically different they are based upon the load. It's mainly the load that drives the difference in the cost. If everybody had the same load all the time, 24 hours a day, they'd build the most efficient plant to be used all the time, 24 hours a day. As it is, you build the big nuke plants for base load, you build the gas-fired plants that can start up and shut down real quick for the peaky type load. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, I didn't know everything, but that's very interesting.
Maybe the simpler part of that question is TVA has a fuel cost adjustment again this month. And we know it seems to be kind of a stable cost right now.
Right.
Is that, I know we don't represent TVA. Do you have a theory why continue so many months consecutively increase the base on fuel costs?
Well, first of all, I'd look at the weather. The weather has been hot. Whenever it's hot, they have higher demand. While TVA hasn't been setting all-time records, they have been, like the weatherman would tell you, 73 days this winter. This summer we've had above 90-degree temperatures. So that's getting to 73 days. They were buying the most expensive power that I just described. So they've been out buying power that, as a percentage, is a lot more expensive, number one, and they bought a lot more of it than they had planned. So it's really a function of the weather as much as anything, that they've had to go out and purchase a larger volume of higher priced power.
I mean, they're basically buying electricity on the spot market, aren't they? I mean,
They are,
it's sort of
and
like
really,
a blank check.
yes, they sit and they look at the cost it would take to generate themselves versus what they can buy it for. So they're always playing what's the least cost option. So at any given point in time, they may have some of their plants shut down and be buying it on the market if they can buy it cheaper than what they can generate. So they got a whole staff that's optimizing that mix hourly.
Other questions? We got off the subject. Other questions regarding the PSDE and the TDHUD?
I recommend that we approve resolution 1230 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments from the public regarding this matter? Okay. Okay, Mr. Coley, we need a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Canal.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson.
Aye.
Commissioner Simmons.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
That's a unanimous approval of resolution 1230 on second reading.
Thank you. Resolution 1231, amending section 2 of resolution 1060, providing modifications to the availability section of the gas division's G11 rate schedule.